Hey everyone, welcome back to another video here on DarkSec. I am Dark, and today we're going to be taking a look at the room Baron Samedit on TryHackMe. This is a tutorial room exploring CVE 2021-3156 in the Unix sudo program. Got ahead of myself there. Room 3 in the sudo Vulns series, and I definitely recommend checking out the other Vulns other rooms in this series. This is a room about the new sudo vuln that allowed a really easy pervask through sudo, and we'll see that here in just a moment. This is a vulnerability that has existed in sudo for many years, as in many years, like over probably 15 years at this point. So really bad. Pretty much everything, every version of Linux had this problem. So you can see whether this became a bigger problem for the community at whole, but I digress. Let's go ahead and dive into task 1, deploy. So click the green deploy button to start an instance in the machine. We'll go ahead and do that. I'm not sure what that button is on the side. That's new. We're going to go ahead and start our attack box as well, just for funsies. I don't know if we're going to need the attack box in this room. I think I will. So we're going to go ahead and spin it up just to make things easy. But we'll get into that. Once it loads, this machine can be accessed in the browser window at the top of your screen. If you would prefer to access the box manually, then you can connect to it through the TryHackMe network using the attack box or your OpenVPN configuration file. If you don't know how to do this, take a quick look at the OpenVPN room first. So take a look at that. If you are going further in your career, I definitely recommend having your own machine. However, if you, pardon me, don't have the resources for that, using the attack box is it's an easy way to do it. This is something that you are not comfortable with having your own machine, or you're a little bit newer and just want to try a newer exploit to get a better look at what the field looks like now. This is a real problem. This is a very real problem that we're facing here and now. Go ahead and use the attack box. It'll be just fine. Or just use the in-browser access up here. For now, I'm going to go ahead and minimize this since it doesn't seem like we're going to need that, but we'll take a look at it in a moment. Please note that the VMs can take a few minutes to boot up fully, so give it just a little bit. It'll show the IP up here. Once it shows the IP, the machine's probably booted. In this case, we can see that it is booted, so we can take a look at it at that point. Credit for the header image goes to the amazing Varg. Varg also made the thumbnail for this video, so shout out to Varg. You can find his Twitter down in the video description. If you want to see some really cool art, and he does a lot of it, check it out. Definitely recommend following him on Twitter for that. Additionally, he did the fan art for Blaster and Blue, and he's working on one for Light Cycle as well, so keep an eye out for that, and it's definitely worthwhile checking out all those. So we'll go ahead and mark that as completed and move into task 2, the actual meat and potatoes. And apparently I under streak again. Baron Samedit. In January 2021, so last month at the time of recording, Qualys released a blog post detailing a terrifying new vulnerability in the Unix sudo program. Specifically, this was a heap buffer overflow, allowing any user to escalate privileges to root. No misconfigurations required. So you can have a perfectly fine Linux box, and then, this can just come around and ruin your day. This exploit works with the default settings for any user regardless of sudo permissions, which makes it all the scarier. All you need is sudo to be there. The vulnerability has been patched, but affects any unpatched version of the sudo program from 1.8.2, -1, I won't read the full version number, and 1.9.0, meaning that it's been around for the last 10 years. So it's been around for quite a while. Big problem. Especially when you have a lot of servers that are sitting out in production environments that likely have this problem, and are not always easy to patch. The program has been very quickly patched, with patch versions making their way into repositories soon after. So this exploit will no longer work on up-to-date targets. However, it is still incredibly powerful. Odds are, if you're doing something in a lab environment, you can probably run amok with this. There are a number of machines on TryHackMe that we've specifically left as vulnerable to this because it's a nice training environment, and a lot of those are guided anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So if you want to play around with it a little bit more after this room, give it a try. If you're doing the offensive path, this is something that I recommend. play around with. It really goes to show that there's more than one way to approach a problem. And this shows that, yeah, new things come about. I've had situations where I've been in the middle of a pen test and a new vuln comes out and it'd say, ooh, let's try this out. And it usually works. As with CVE 2019-18634, which we saw in the second sudo vulns room, again, recommend checking that out. This vulnerability is a buffer overflow in the sudo program. However, this time the vulnerability is a heap buffer overflow, as opposed to a stack buffer overflow we saw before. That is a different area in memory. That's all you really need to know for getting started. You'll dig into that a little bit more with exploit development and going into advanced Windows exploit development, but just know they're different areas of memory. The stack is a very regimented section of memory which stores various important aspects of a program. The heap, on the other hand, is reserved for dynamic allocation of memory, allowing for more flexibility in how values and constructs are created and accessed by a program. You can kind of get a little bit of a feel for that by the name as well. Stack sounds a little bit more orderly. Heap usually implies that things are just kind of chucked on there. So a little bit more flexibility on that side of things. As with the previous room, we will not go into a huge amount of detail about how this works in the interest of keeping the content beginner friendly. All we really need to understand is that this vulnerability is incredibly powerful and extremely wide-reaching. Emphasis on this last bit. So, first up, what can we do to check whether a system is vulnerable? Fortunately, there's a very easy method we can use to check. Simply enter this command into a terminal. It's going to be sudo edit -s and then single quote, backslash single quote, $, and then you have a Python 3 print a command. So that this bit here is your actual buffer overflow. So what you're doing is you are triggering a buffer overflow in the sudo edit command. So you can see that we're testing to make sure that this will actually crash the sudo edit, or sudo in this case. So if the system is vulnerable, then this will override the heap buffer and crash the program. So when we are crashing it, we're actually writing to memory that we shouldn't be able to. That means that something in there is using a bad command that allows us to either a bad command or the memory is not calculated correctly, which allows us to take advantage of things like fence post errors. Definitely recommend checking that out if you were interested in learning a little bit more of the nuts and bolts of this, which allows us to put things where we shouldn't, and that breaks things in computer land. This POC was obtained from a researcher named Lockbite here, so check that out. When the advisory first came out, Qualys did not supply full code for the exploit. That is very normal. Vendors will typically not give you full code for the exploit. That is typically so that you just know to patch it. They don't want to give you something that a script kiddie, so an unskilled threat actor that would be a black hat, unethical hacker, would go out and be able to run and just knock things over and make life hell. So that's very typical. You won't see something released right away. We saw the same thing happen specifically with Zero Logon, and if you're interested in more of seeing what the current state of the field looks like, check out that video after this. It did not take long for other researchers to replicate the vulnerability. However, the first working copy of the exploit to be made publicly available was created by a researcher known as Blasty. Their full exploit code can be found on GitHub here. This is what we'll be using to exploit the machine you deployed in the first task. This machine has been set up to allow for easy exploitation of the vulnerability. As such, the GitHub repository linked above has already been added to the target. So it's already downloaded. We don't actually need our attack machine. I'm actually going to kill mine off right now. Scrolling up is overrated, as it turns out. This is, so that's what we'll be using. The machine has already been set up. In the home directory, you will see a folder called exploit. So we'll take a look at that in a moment. There's our folder. Enter this directory using the command cd exploit. You will see a file called makefile. This indicates that we can automatically compile the exploit by simply typing make and then pressing enter. So this is just compiling it, and you can see that it's just going to run these commands. We have a little bit here that's blurred out. That's going to be one of our answers down for the actual question. And then we can see that it just has everything there. Checking the contents of the directory again, we can see that a new executable file has appeared, and we can see that it's named sudo hacks something. When we run this file, we will be presented with several options. So we have our usage, and then we have our available targets here. So it's a little bit different, mostly because it's using a different library to actually exploit the target. Note the name of the executable has been changed here as it is the answer to question 1, and we'll see that in a moment. There are currently 3 targets which this exploit will work against. I'm sure that there are more by the time of this recording, honestly. The machine we deployed is in Ubuntu 18.04.5 server. So we will use target 0. That is going to be this first one up here. So Ubuntu, the name for that distribution is actually Bionic Beaver. Ubuntu, when they release different versions, they use oh my goodness, repetitive names. So the first letter is always going to match up. Alliteration. There we go. That's also super common. If you are a superhero fan, you will see that for superhero names, that alliteration is super common too. I digress. When executed with the target specified as a parameter, we gain a root shell. So all we need to do is run the actual exploit, so the executable that we were given, and then we supply one parameter with the number, and then we have a root shell. That's pretty quick. That's really dangerous, and you can see where the problem is here. So now it's your turn. Use the machine in your browser or log in over SSH using these credentials. So it'll be TryHackMe for the username and then TryHackMe for the password, all lowercase. Let's go ahead and we'll go up here, maybe. I'm going to go ahead and kill off my attack box since we don't actually need it, which is pretty convenient. I love when we have these machines that are just accessible in the browser. We can go ahead and do ls. We can see that we have the exploit directory. We'll do cd exploit, and again, I'm just using tab to complete those. ls, and we can see that we have the make file. We run just make. There we go. And we can see that we have this executable that was created, sudo hacks me a sandwich. And we can go ahead, we'll scroll down, and that is going to be the answer to question 1. Sudo hacks me a sandwich. We'll go ahead and hit enter. Now we're going to go ahead and run the exploit. You should now have a root shell. Let's go ahead and see what we get with running that. So we'll do /sudo hacks me a sandwich, and then we know that we want to use 0 as our target. We'll go ahead and run that. And that was very quick. Typing who am I, we can see that we are root now. See where the problem is? Yeah, this is not great. This is something that if you have not patched your Linux servers, please patch your Linux servers. This didn't come out that long ago. Please patch this. Don't make my life as a pen tester easier than it should be. You should be not hoping that I have a fun time on the job. I digress. Let's go ahead and go to the root directory and let's claim our spoils. So we've got the flag here. So we'll cat flag. And that's not going to work, is we don't have tab completion because this is a weird shell. Flag.txt, and there we go. I'll go ahead and copy that. It looks like it's mostly gibberish. Let's see if it's going to let me paste. If not, I will put that in there. And there we go. That's going to do it for the Baron Samedit room. Hopefully you found this entertaining. Again, I definitely recommend checking out the other rooms in this series. And then check out the 0 logon video as well. It's very cool. The 0 logon video is a little bit more complicated, and it's something that if you want to see, one of the things that I recommend as you're getting into exploit development or really curious to see what the high end of the field looks like, go through, take a look at something intimidating or possibly intimidating like that. It doesn't matter if it doesn't necessarily make sense. InfoSec is exposure based. Just go sit through the video. You can just follow along with me as I'm doing it, and then just put the answers in. You can do it as I do it by just following along in the machine. So check it out. Otherwise, if you have any questions, as always, I will have both the TryHackMe official Discord as well as the DarkSec Discord linked in the video description below. If you enjoyed this content, subscribe to me on YouTube, follow me on Twitter, and until next time, happy hacking.